Hey everyone, it has been 6 months since I came back from surgery with Dr. Suporn. And in those 6 months, I have gotten a lot of questions, and pretty much all of them go under this massive umbrella of how did you pick your surgeon and why Suporn? Now, it's really important that in addition to answering your questions, I give you my personal perspective as well, but that's a lot of information to cover in one video. So I made another video about my 6 months post-op right here, or down in the description. You can watch them either way, and that should answer a little bit of your personal questions as to feeling and things like that. Now, what this video is for is answering that one major question of how did you pick your surgeon? What's the process for it? Why did you pick Suporn? Why not Bowers? And why not Dr. Brassard? So as an introduction, if you are just starting out, if you are just now looking at sexual reassignment surgery for transgendered women, then I would highly, highly recommend that you not just consider this as a resource. Go ahead and do all of the research that you need. Get a list of every single surgeon and promise to yourself that you will spend at least a week researching the one surgeon that you immediately decide on, and at least a day or two on all the other surgeons. If one catches your eye a little bit better than another one, then spend a week on them. It's not going to be an immediate choice, I want to do this. But for some people who are financially restricted, you may have less surgeons to look over than more. Now I'm going to go ahead and separate this video into 5 different parts, and each one will be a different step. And inside of that step, I'll answer several questions. So these steps are going to have a lot of content in them, and I'm hoping I can fit it into a YouTube video. Now, step 1, you've decided you want to do SRS. That's great. You have a ton of questions to go through now. And with all of those questions, it's really important that you understand how you feel. So before you even get into the whole surgeons, before you get into the financial aspect, everything like that, you need to do a little bit of self-learning. And that's not anything that you're a stranger to if you're a trans woman. There's a reason why a lot of the WPATH standards and a lot of the standards of care for trans individuals require that you be in transition for a certain amount of time before you do surgery. Surgery, you cannot come back from. Let's say that again, you can't come back from it. There's not going to be any way that we can reconstruct the parts that you've originally had after we start taking them apart and piecing them together as a different part. It's just not going to work. So this is a very serious thing. You need to spend a little bit of time with your body, getting to know it, getting to figure out what exactly you don't like about it. Do you not like the sensation being on the base? Do you not like it being on the area of your genitalia? And record this, figure it out. And if you have a partner, that's even better. You can figure it out with your partner. What are you comfortable with? What are you not comfortable with? What feels good? And where does that feel good? Once you have your emotional things down and everything like that, you're going to move on to step 2. Step 2 is going to be actually looking at surgeons. Don't worry about the finances for now. Don't worry about anything like that. You want to get as much of a possibility space as possible before you actually start dumbing down all of those surgeons. So what I recommend is getting a hold of a lot of the resources. Your local LGBT community is really great at just giving you names for surgeons, and so is Google. Google is going to be your friend for this. All you have to do is search SRS surgeon reviews, and you'll get a review for me, Dr. Suporn. If you came here because of that, awesome, great, you're on the right track. If you want to see Brassard, you'll probably see a review for Brassard and Bowers and McGinn and all of the other random surgeons that are out there. There's surgeons all over the world, so you'll want to make sure that you see each and every one's technique. And each technique is going to be sorted into 3 different categories. Now, one technique may be good at the way that it looks. Does it aesthetically look like a cis woman's vagina? One may be good at how does it feel? Does it feel as close to a cis woman's vagina in accordance to a lot of reviews and things like that as possible? And the third one is going to be depth. How deep is it? If it's only going to be 1 inch deep, but it looks like the best vagina ever in the history of the world, and you, in step 1, discovered that you really think you would like penetration, because that's something you really enjoy, then don't get the 1 inch vagina. You're gonna want a depth that is accurate to what you think. Now, as soon as you have as much of a possibility space, your surgeons are going to tell you which ones are going to be best for you, but you'll also get an inherent feeling as to what you really want. So I recommend during step 2, actually write down what you would like best. Do you prioritize depth over looks, or do you prioritize looks over feel, and do you prioritize feel over depth? Which of those three is most important? Which is second important, and which is third? Then worry about the financial stuff. And segueing to step 3, as soon as you have all of the surgeons that you want to do, you're going to dumb all of those down based upon those 3 steps: the depth, the feeling, and the looks. Which do you find most important? Which surgeons actually go in line with that? And then you'll want to start talking about finances. Finances are going to come in 2 steps. Finance part 1 is, can you afford him, period. Dr. Suporn is probably one of the more expensive surgeons, and he's the best one out there. But if you also consider he lives in Thailand, where expensive isn't really that expensive. I went there, and my partner and I spent about $48,000 for that. His surgery is about $20,000, and the typical going rate in America is about the same. So by going to Dr. Suporn for his surgery, at least, it was about the same price as if I were to go to Bowers or Dr. McGinn. Now, the other thing you want to consider, though, is that we spent a considerably larger amount in expenses, travel, hotel stay, and things like that. Dr. Suporn required that we stay for an entire month. Now, because of that, we had to pay for hotel for an entire month, room and board, in addition to food, water, travel expenses, and also a little bit of spending money as well. Bought a nice skirt. So that'll be part 2. Basically, now that you know whether or not you can afford them, can you afford the extra expenses? That includes actually going out. This is also really important because we're going to be talking about insurance. One of the most wonderful things about being trans is that you have to go through a lot of different medical fields, and not having the insurance in order to substantiate that leads to a lot of problems in the trans community. In Colorado, I am lucky enough to have trans medical coverage, but at the time when I got my surgery 6 months ago, that was not the case. Trans medical coverage is a huge hot topic in the government for trans rights. If you do have trans medical coverage, and Kaiser Permanente, Blue Cross Blue Shield in some places, and a few other health insurance companies will cover SRS to a certain extent, they will probably recommend a surgeon for you. Dr. Bowers and Dr. McGinn are the 2 most popular. But if you live in Canada or if you live in other places, you might be able to go to Dr. Broussard or something along those lines. Consider the insurance after you considered what surgeons you want to go to. Because if you just consider a surgeon based upon the insurance, you may not be getting the vagina that you want. And being satisfied for the rest of your life is kind of the point of the surgery. So this is a lot of information. It's definitely a lot to consider, but we basically went over insurance being step 4 in the process. Step 3, 4, I don't remember. Let's forget about the numbers for now. The next thing that you're going to want to consider, as soon as you've dumbed down a surgeon, you've figured out how to run the finances, you've figured out whether or not you're doing insurance, and you know about the traveling expenses, the next thing you need to do is get a hold of the surgeon. And this is extremely important. When you call for that surgeon, usually over an email, or you can also talk to them over the phone, you get a feel for them. It's just like if you were to look at someone and say, you know what, this is really sketchy. You should be considering that for your surgeon as well. There have been a lot of times when the dissatisfaction that I hear from a lot of people is not necessarily about the surgery that happened, but more about the surgeon. A lot of times, for instance, with facial feminization surgery, Dr. Zlomke, or it starts with a Z, Dr. Z, is extremely cheap. He's covered by insurance, but a lot of people don't like him. Put straightforward, I've heard that he's a dick. He's ruined some of the surgeries, he's ruined some of people's faces. So you need to make sure that you get a good understanding of your surgeon, either through their secretary or through the surgeon themselves. And if at any point in time you start getting a bad taste in your mouth, stop. Stop, review why, talk to a ton of other patients that have gone there, and see if it's actually going to be a problem. Example, when I went to Dr. Suporn, I was told that he had a remarkably low error rate. I didn't think that was even true or even possible. It's a medical field. There are always going to be problems with surgeries, and for Dr. Suporn to have like this, in 1,000 surgeries, only 1 gets things wrong, that probably wasn't actually true. So I dug down and I learned a little bit more before I went forward and decided that Dr. Suporn would be the number one best thing. I found the problems that he typically runs into. Now, the problems that he runs into, I didn't really find to be big problems, so I moved forward. But in some cases, if you find one of those problems, you may want to start looking at other surgeons. See if those other surgeons in your current problem space have the same problem. 5, after you've contacted the surgeon, after everything's gone forward, you're going to want to place your deposit and you're going to want to start preparing for it and listen to your body. Harkening back to step 1, you need to be doing that constantly. Your surgery is probably going to be a good 9 to 12 months out. So you're going to have 9 to 12 months after you've put in that deposit to decide whether or not this is for you. You can, at any time, revoke that amount. Yes, there may be penalties if you do it 9 months in and you're 1 month away from your surgery date, but you will still be able to do that. And you don't want to make sure, you don't want to get scared, you don't want to get frazzled, but you do want to make sure that you have an open dialogue with a trusted friend, with a trusted family member, or with the LGBT community, and with your therapist. Your therapist is also going to be very important going through this. As soon as you've done all 5 of these steps, you should have a surgeon that you really enjoy, that you really like. And don't get me wrong, putting this into a 15-minute YouTube video is not the best way to say how to connect with the surgeon. This is an extremely dumbed down portion of the process. The process, like I said, can take up to a solid year while you're in transition, and you don't want to rush it. You don't want to do anything like that. So if you need any more information, if you have any more questions for me personally, just send me a message on Facebook. I'm very easy to find, just Samantha Venia Logan, and I've also linked my Facebook down in the description below. If you need anything else from me, let me know. Bye now.